Welcome to our new story, The Umbrella Girls and the Three People, written and read by Mark Patrick. Over the next few weeks, I hope you will travel with me and the Umbrella Girls, Jojo, Anna, Sam and Kay, as they go on their first big adventure. If you would like to be on the special list to get the first copies of the Umbrella Girls' new book, then just email me at markpatricklist@gmail.com and I will put your name on that list for your copy. So let the adventures begin. Chapter 1, 30 years before the adventures begin. Sean Boyle sighed as the rain and wind hit the large kitchen window. Standing there moaning won't make it stop raining, and that dog needs to go out and wee. Otherwise, he'll fall over if he crosses his legs anymore. Mandy Boyle shouted at her husband as she put another apple pie in the oven. Tomorrow was a big day for the Boyles. Their oldest, Thomas, or Tom as his little friends called him, was going to be 5, and the plan was to have a barbecue in the garden. Mandy was praying silently that the weatherman was proven right and the sun was on his way. Though, every now and again, she would glance out the window and give a moan and start praying all over again. "Sean, will you bring that dog out before he makes a bloody mess on the floor?" she said to her husband again. "Ah, Jesus, all right," he answered as he walked over to the pantry and grabbed his heavy waxed raincoat off the hanger. Mandy never understood her husband's bad moods when the rain and the wind was blowing hard. Ever since they had moved into the house, he'd become more moody when the bad weather hit. It was her idea to move into the large old house, but it had been in Sean's family for over 200 years, and she thought all the extra space and its location would be great for the kids. But also, she had always dreamed of a life living in the country, making jam and collecting their own fresh eggs every morning. The kids loved it. Thomas had his own treehouse that he's built with his dad, and he spent hours in it with his friends. And soon Susan would begin to walk, and she would have her own treehouse and her own adventures. Sean was working on a design for Susan's treehouse. Pretty pink walls and cute little windows and shutters, and all that was left to do was hang the little door. In fact, it was a treehouse that was only 3 feet off the ground, but he planned to move it higher and higher as Susan grew up. He built it between 2 young oak trees down near the back of the field in front of the kitchen, but it was still fully visible from the window so that he could keep an eye on their young daughter. She knew Sean loved the house most of the times, but sometimes she caught him looking into the distance. Lost in memories he never let her into. She wondered if those memories were that bad, and was that the reason she had to convince him to move back into his old family home. "Okay, Lucky, let's go," he said to the small dog that was jumping up and down at the back door. The wind and rain hit Sean square in the face as he closed the door behind him. Lucky ran directly to the spot that he used to favourite for weeing. Sean smiled as he looked at the relief on the dog's face as he began his business. Sean looked up at the trees, dancing to the music of the wind. A cold shudder came all over him as he remembered his grandfather's stories that he used to read from the letter journal that he said was handed down from generation to generation. Though he never knew what his dad had done with that journal after his grandfather died. He stood as close to the wall as possible to try and get some shelter. After a few minutes lost in his memories, he heard Lucky barking. "What now?" he said out loud. "Lucky, where are you?" he shouted as he walked down the field. "I'm bloody wet. Come here now," he shouted even louder at the shadow of the dog at the end of the field. His shoes sucked up the rain water as he moved down the field. Looking at the falling branches around, he knew he had to go early in the morning to clean the place before everyone arrived. Well, that's assuming the sun came out and Mandy's prayers were answered. "Lucky, back to the house," he barked at the dog. Lucky looked at his owner, and he knew he was in trouble. He gave one last bark and turned and headed towards the house. You think I like standing out here getting wet while you wee? Sean asked the dog, who walked by him, expecting a possible kick in the backside. Lucky and Sean both heard the sound of creaking at the same time. It was as if time just stood still. Both of their ears came to attention as they tried to place where the sound was coming from. A faint movement caught Sean's eye at the base of the tree. It was a shadow. But Lucky, looking upwards, barked and used all her powers in her forelegs to move away from the sound. Sean looked away as a second creaking sound sounded louder. He saw a very large branch high up begin to move towards him. Unlike Lucky, he felt his legs grow like anchors into the ground, the weight of them freezing him to the spot. The branch moved with ease through the other weaker branches, coming down towards him. It had lived for many years on the old chestnut tree and was now ending its time of looking majestic in the summer and weak in the winter. Sean tried to move, but fear played his part in making sure he could not look away and run. He knew his time clock had just stopped, and he would never run again. And already he was bemoaning the things he would miss. In the last moments, with strength, he looked towards the house. Then he felt it, the roughness on his shoulders as he was pulled away from where he stood. The smell of damp bark filled his nose. The sound of near silent whispered filled his ears. He floated just a bit off the ground from the power of the pull. He turned and saw the face of his saviour, and just before the darkness and tightness came, he smiled, and he knew his grandfather's stories had been true. His fear faded away. Then the brightness of light filled every muscle and sense in his body. Chapter 2. Jojo sat in her bed, listening to all the movements downstairs. The furniture removers had brought all their stuff from their old house yesterday, and her mother was shouting directions at her dad on where she wanted stuff put. She liked her new room, though she wouldn't be letting her mum know that. Not yet, anyway. She hated leaving her old house and her friends, but she heard her mum say to her dad that was too much of a good opportunity to miss. She knew that since her dad had stopped going to his old work, the money was what her mother called tight. Though what that meant she was not sure, because she never had any money that felt tight. She's also seen her mum and dad sitting at the kitchen table a few times with bills and stuff in front of them, talking in low voices. Since his dad had stopped going to work, his smile had disappeared. He didn't seem as young anymore. So when her nanny had taken ill, her mother had said selling their home and moving back to her dad's old house was a good solution. Also, Dad's sister, her favourite mad aunt, Susan, had only just got married and didn't think her new husband would like suddenly to have to look after an old woman. She had also heard her dad called him a plonker, and seemingly plonkers can't look after old people. So her dad had agreed with her mum, and here they were, living in a very old house that her dad had once lived in. It wasn't that far really from our old friends, but she hated not being able to just walk down the road and see them. Yes, she went to the school with them, but that wasn't the same. Jojo, did you hear me? Came the voice from downstairs. It shook Jojo out of her daydreaming. Yes, I hear you. What? She shouted back. Your friends are arriving. Come down and get them. Jojo shot off the bed with a smile and ran down the stairs. She wasn't sure if it was the excitement of seeing her friends again, though it was only last week that they were all together at Kay's party. Or maybe it will be the look on their faces when she tells them about the secret find last night. The first face she saw as she came down the old-fashioned staircase was Samantha, known to all as Sam. She was a tomboy of the group and dressed and acted accordingly. That's why she loved the name Sam. The last boy to call her Samantha had ended up with a black eye. Anna was standing there wide-eyed, looking round the large, old hall. Anna was the quiet one of the group. Then she heard Kay scream. Kristen was known as Kay, mainly because most of them could never spell Kristen when they were smaller, so she became known as Kay to them all. As soon as she screamed, all the rest of the gang joined in as Jojo bounced and jumped over the last 3 steps. The 4 of them hugged as a group. God, Christian, try and not scream the house down, her mum said as she dumped the last of the overnight bags in the hall. Okay, Sam's dad will pick them all up around 1 tomorrow, if that suits, she said to Jojo's mum. That's perfect, Jojo's mum said as she smiled and looked round at the gang, all talking and jumping and hugging. Okay, then enjoy, and I love the house, Kay's mum said as she walked out into the wooden porch that was showing serious signs of age. I'd love to show you around, but there are boxes everywhere. But don't worry, next week we're going to have everybody over for the grand tour, Jojo's mum said as she made a mental note to get someone to clean all the cobwebs off the porch and buy some paint for it. Okay, girls, take all your bags up to Jojo's room. I'll have some lunch ready in a while for you, Jojo's mum said as she ran her hand over her head, trying to figure out what room to tackle next and wondering where the love of her life had disappeared to. Jojo, this is a cool house. It's so big. We need a map just to find your way around, Anna said in her usual low voice. Kay called Anna the brains of the group because she was always reading and studying stuff. Jojo said it was because she was an only child. Either way, she was the go-to person when the homework got tough. I see, Susan. Well, try not to make too much noise, Gran said. No, Gran. I am Jojo. What? Who changed your name? Gran asked. No, I've always been Jojo or Joanna. Susan is your daughter. I'm your granddaughter, Jojo explained. Don't be so silly. I'm too young to have a granddaughter. Where's Susan? Gran asked. She's at her own house. What? And where are you going? Gran asked. To show my friends my room, Jojo said, as she nodded towards the door further on. What? That's Susan's room. Where did you say Susan was? She's at her own house, Gran, Jojo explained again. Her house? Don't be so silly. She lives here. No, Gran. She lives in her own house. I live here now, Jojo was trying to explain further. What are you going on about, Susan? Gran asked, getting a bit annoyed. Jojo knew she was getting nowhere, so she decided to change tack. My dad's downstairs. Ask him about Susan, Jojo said as she went to move on. And who is your dad? Came the unexpected reply. Thomas, your son. What? Thomas is your dad? Since when? Gran asked. Well, since I was born. Why not go downstairs, Gran, and he will explain it all to you. My mum is there as well. Your mum? Who's your mum? Gran asked. Anne-Marie, Jojo said. Oh, did he marry her? He never told me that. Right, I will sort this out. You lot wait here, she said as she made her way downstairs on a mission. Cool, Sam said. She doesn't just have a mad auntie, she has a mad gran. And with all that, the girls started to laugh. What's wrong with her? Kay asked as they continued on their journey to Jojo's bedroom. She has something my dad called demented, I think. That is why we had to move here. Well, that and the money. Dementia, Anna said to no one in particular. What? Kay asked, looking confused. It's called dementia, not demented. That's it, Jojo said, happy that she nearly had it right. Okay, I understand what demented is. What is dementia? Sam asked. It's where people have memory problems. They mix things up and forget who they are, Anna explained, and then noticed that the whole group was looking at her. I read it in a medical book I bought, Anna said. God, Anna, you really need to get out more. I'll buy your mum and dad a few bottles of wine, Kay said. And now everyone's looking at her. How will wine help her? Sam asked. Well, that's why I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. What are you talking about? Anna asked, completely confused. Well, Kay explained, my mum blames wine on her having so many kids. So if Anna's mum and dad had a few bottles of wine, she might have a brother or sister, she said as she shrugged her shoulders as if everyone should know what she was talking about. My mum and dad don't drink, Anna explained. Well, that explains why you only are the only child, Kay said. Kay, I am amazed that you were allowed out on your own, Anna said as a comment was lost on Kay. But Sam and Jojo just looked at Kay, both thinking the same thing. So, where's your room? Kay said, pushing on completely, oblivious to everyone else's thoughts. This one, Jojo said as she opened the last door, which led into a large, bright room. Whoa, said all the girls at once. It's huge, Sam said as she turned a full circle in the room. And you have 3 windows. I only have 1, Kay laughed. This room is bigger than my mum and dad's room, Anna said in shock. Oh my God, look at this, Sam said, with her head poking in through another door. There's another room in here. That's the walk-in wardrobe, Jojo said, a bit embarrassed. It's like a movie set. You've a walk-in wardrobe. Cool, Kay shouted. Jojo smiled and realised for the first time that she did have a cool bedroom. She looked at her friends, all running around as they opened different doors and took in the whole room. What's this? Sam asked as she opened a small door that was in the wall. It used to be a dumbwaiter, Jojo said, and noticed the others staring back at her. You know, what they used to use to send food from one room up to another room from downstairs. It's not used anymore. Someone blocked it up years ago. Yeah, it's just like a press now, Sam said as she felt around the small space. So, Kay said, in the olden days, you could lie in bed and have food brought up to you while you looked at the TV or played with your PlayStation. That was really cool, she said in amazement. I think you will find that they had no TV or PlayStation back then, Anna informed the gang. Then what's the point in having food in bed? Kay wondered. Jojo decided to bring the room to order and told everyone to put their bags into the walk-in wardrobe and to sit down. Okay, I need to tell you all something. I found something last night. It was hidden in the walls, Jojo started to explain. Oh my God, she found a body. Anna gasped. She did not find a body, Kay said as she looked at Jojo. Did you? No, it wasn't a body. And Anna, you have to stop looking at all those horror movies, Jojo said. So what did you find? Sam asked. Well, Jojo began as she lowered her voice to a whisper. It was all wrapped up in an old cloth and must have been lying there for years. Look, I'll show you where it was, she said as she led the group onto the landing. Well, you all remember it was raining really heavy last night, Jojo said more as a statement than a question as she stopped on the landing, looked down the stairs to make sure no one else was coming or listening. Well, about an hour after I went to bed, I heard a sound of like an open window banging back and forth, and I thought maybe my gran had left the door or the window open. But I tried to ignore it, hoping that my dad or someone else would come and fix it. And also because the bed was warm, I knew everywhere else would be cold. But after a few more bangs, I decided to get up and see what it was. She explained. God, that's brave. I would have stayed in bed, Anna said in awe. Why? Sam asked. Look at how old this house is, and she has a mad granny in the next room. Have you ever seen any horror movies? No, I would have stayed in bed and prayed to all the gods, Anna explained. Why all the gods? Kay asked. Well, just in case I believed in the wrong one. Jojo shot Anna a look that said, "Shut up." Anna smiled and just said sorry. "Anyway," Jojo continued as if Anna had not spoken, "I got out of the bed and I was right. Everywhere was freezing." "Who cares that it was cold? What happened next?" Sam asked, rolling her eyes up to heaven. "I'm just painting the picture for everyone," Jojo explained. "Well, I went onto the landing and just waited there for a few moments to figure out where the banging was coming from. After a while, the banging noise came again. It was coming from inside one of the rooms on the landing." "Which one?" Sam asked. "This one," Jojo said, pointing to the door they were all standing in front of. "What's in there?" Sam asked as she moved closer to examine the door, as if the door itself would answer all her questions. "It's the hot press. It's a walk-in one," Jojo explained as she opened the door and noticed that as she did, the rest of the group stood back, as if expecting something to charge out of the room. They all seemed to wait for a few moments, and then they all got brave and peeked into the room that was lined with shelves that held towels, sheets, and other items of clothing. "So where was the banging coming from?" Kay asked as she put more of her body into the small room. She was brave again. "The attic just above your head," Jojo said, and with that statement, Kay lost her brief moment of being brave and backed out of the room again. "Do you mean in the actual attic?" Anna asked in a tone that told the rest of the gang that she was thinking again of the horror movies she had seen. "No, it was actually that door," Jojo explained as she pointed to the small square hatch set into the ceiling high above. "It was part opened. I think my dad must have put something up there yesterday and did not close it right. So the wind in the attic was blowing it and making it bang on the sides." "What wind?" Kay asked. "I think there's a few roof tiles loose or missing, and so when the rain and the wind comes, it comes into the attic. Anyway, I climbed up using the shelves as steps, and I closed it properly. And that's when I saw it." "Saw what?" Sam asked as she looked up around the opening. "The dirty cloth sticking out of a brick just above the door frame. There," Jojo pointed to the top of the door that the girls were all standing in. Sam and Kay moved deeper into the room to see the actual spot that Jojo was pointing at. Anna decided it was better to stay on the landing, just in case she needed to raise the alarm or run for help. Well, someone had to do it. "It's nearly impossible to see, but when I closed the hatch door, it nearly fell, and I grabbed the edge of the door to balance, and some of the plaster came away. And when it did, that's when I saw it, the lump of dirty cloth. So I pulled it, but it was jammed. So I pulled it some more, and more plaster fell off. And then it just came out," Jojo said as she led the group back to her room and showed them the dirty cloth, which was now lying underneath her bed. "So how long do you think the cloth was buried there?" Sam asked. "Years, I guess," Jojo said. "But it had plaster all over it, and it was buried really good and deep into the wall. Or they never were able to come back and get it," came the response from Anna, who was now more than ever sure she was in the middle of a horror movie. "So I assume it wasn't just any old cloth?" Kay asked. "Oh, it was," Jojo answered. "So what's all the whispering about, if it's just an old cloth?" Sam asked, confused. "Because it was wrapped around something." "What?" Anna asked, even more confused. "Come on, I'll show you," Jojo said as they all headed back to her room. She then walked over to the corner of her room and turned round and said to Sam, "Stand at the door for a minute and make sure no one comes in." "What's going on?" Kay asked. "You will see." Then she put her fingers into a small hole in the floorboards and pulled out a cracked bit of the floorboard. "I hope there are no rats or anything in there," Anna whispered as Jojo stuck her hand into the black hole. That comment made her stop for a moment. She'd never thought about rats, but her hand had gone from view now anyway. Rats, Kay asked. Well, it is an old house, Anne explained. And with that, Jojo pulled out a small parcel wrapped in an old cloth. This is what I found, Jojo explained as she laid the parcel on the bed and looked round as her friends' eyes all glared at only one thing in the room. Slowly, Jojo unwrapped the old cloth which had held her secret find. Suddenly Anna screamed and jumped off the bed. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week to find out what happened to Anna and why did she jump off the bed and what magic is under that dirty old cloth.